Oh, thank you very much. Right. Welcome back, everyone. Who knows where we left off last time? Okay, well, Paul says in the Amida somewhere. Well, that's a good start. Okay, Philip is remembered correctly. We finished off with Hakela Kadosh, which means that we now have to start the next bracha. But it's not just the next bracha, because we're into the next section now. If you remember, we spoke about the Amidah, the 19 brachot, being split into 3 sections. We have the first section, which is the first 3 brachot. The first one being
Abraham.
Avot. Thank you very much. Yeah. Philip's not listening; he's just counting his pulse. Okay, so Avot is the first one. Second one is Gvura. Yeah, Gvurot. The bracha of power. Barbara's breaking the chair. The bracha of power, in which we insert in the winter Mashiv Haruach Moed HaGeshem, because that is part of God's power, is to bring about the wind and rain, and we've seen a bit of that recently. The third bracha is Kedusha, okay, holiness, and those first 3 form a section on its own. That is the introductory section. That is the section where we describe God's powers, God's attributes, the fact that that He is the powerful one, that is Mechayeh Meitim, He brings back the life to the dead. He has the Kedusha, He is Hakela Kadosh, the holy God. He is the Magain Avraham, He is the shield of Avraham. So the first 3 brachot, we are not requesting anything. We're stating matters of fact. We are stating the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, the second section, which we're going to start today, consists of 13 brachot. And each of those 13 is a separate request for something. Okay, this is a bit where we're requesting. So if we understand that, we have to ask the question, what are the first 3 all about? Why do we have the first 3 at all? We've just spent the last half an hour getting to the Amidah, praising God. Oh, that's all we've done. Pesukei Zimbra is all praise of God, isn't it? Baruch Hu, bless God.
No, that's with Paul, half an hour, because he says every word, but the others, it's not half an hour.
First minyan, it's about 35 seconds.
Can you explain, Johnny, one thing to me? What does it mean, Baruch Atah? How can we bless God? I don't understand. Something I've never understood.
All right, that's a fair question. Fair question. What does it mean, Baruch Atah?
Blessed art thou.
Blessed art thou. What does that mean, Philip?
You are blessed.
Meaning?
You are the source of blessing.
Ah, okay. Hannah says that what it means is that we are saying you are the source of the blessing. The blessing that comes to us is through you. Now, where do we hear that expression that that people are blessed through somebody else or something else? In Lech Lecha. Very good, Paul. Would you like to expand? It's a long time since your bar mitzvah, Paul. Come on, cast your mind back. I'll give you a clue. V'nivrachu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. V'nivrachu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. And through you will be blessed. V'nivracha. Okay? So you can see the word, the you can see the word, the root of the word v'nivracha is bet reish chaf. Yeah, bracha.
Yeah.
So v'nivrachu v'cha. God says to Abraham, through you will be blessed the whole of humanity. Okay, so when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, we are. It's a praise of God by saying you are the source of all the blessing in the world. That's what God was blessing Abraham by saying, through you will come all the blessings to the world. Now, how does that happen? Let's just talk about Abraham for a minute, and then we'll apply the same idea to Johnny's question. How was Abraham to be the vehicle through which the world would be blessed? By doing good things. Okay, he would do good things, and thereby, what is the greatest compliment of all? Imitation. Okay, so the greatest compliment is to imitate. So when the world, the nations of the world, see the nation of God, which we are, like it or not, we are the Am HaNivchar. Okay, we are, for better or for worse, we are the Am HaNivchar. Some people have often said, well, why don't you go and choose somebody else for a change? But we are the chosen people, like it or not. When you are the chosen people, you are God's people, and you behave well. And other people say, that's good, I'm going to do the same. That is how blessing is brought to the world. Okay, it's not quite working at the moment, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Okay, tell you why it's not working in a moment. But the idea is that we should be the light unto the nations, or lagoyim. Now, the light unto the nations means that we should be the one that the nations want to imitate. Now, if we behave in a way which is positive, and you see, and people see that as positive, and people understand that we are behaving in a moral and correct way, then in order for it to bring blessing to the world, there has to be two things. Number one, we have to behave in that moral and correct manner. And number two, there has to be a recipient to that. It's no good for us to be the Or la Goyim, and the Goyim say, I don't want an Or, thank you very much. Right? So there has to be a receptacle there. And that's the problem that we have, because we are not seen in the world as an Or la Goyim. You take somebody like Richard Kemp, okay, Colonel Richard Kemp, who was the British commander in Afghanistan. He knows a thing or two about armies, right? When he says that the IDF is the most moral army in the world ought to listen, because he knows what he's talking about. If I say that, you will say, what the hell do you know? You've never been in the army. Quite right, I haven't a clue. But when he says that, they should take notice. Why don't they take notice? Because they don't want to take notice. So they haven't got that recipient. You can't have a dialogue with somebody unless there is a relationship going on there. So the reason that it's not working, it may well be partly our fault, because we may not be being as good and as moral as we might be. I'm not talking about the war now. I'm talking about our general behavior as Jews, as individuals, and as a nation. But there's a two-way journey here. You can't have a situation where, if somebody, my wife has a very one of her most popular sayings is, there's none so blind as those that don't want to see. Okay, none so deaf as those that don't want to hear. Right? You don't want to hear, you don't want to see, then you won't see and hear. So I think that that's why it's not working at the moment. I don't think it's not working at the moment because we aren't necessarily being as good as we were. Although I honestly do believe that our behavior prior to the war in this country, where we were tearing ourselves apart and behaving in a very, very bad way to one another over this judicial reform business, where brother was fighting brother, and it was, we were on the brink of violence, of one Jew against another. I truly believe that that is responsible, both in a natural way and in a metaphysical way. I think in a natural way, our enemies saw us as divided, and therefore saw us as weak because we were divided. And in a metaphysical way, I think that, the Kodesh Baruch Hu has given us enough warnings. When you don't behave appropriately, this is what will happen to you.
We always see it in history when the Jewish people, when they fight, fighting
They come from all over the place. They're all different.
There's nothing new, I guess.
Correct.
If you look already when it became after Shemonah and Melech, when it became two kingdoms.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
The
Correct.
story, and if you look even in Israel, 70 years ago, when it was the
Lechi.
Lechi and
Yeah, you had Etzel and Nagana. Yeah, correct. When you have brother fighting brother, it never ends well. That is for sure. Now, those of you that were here on Tisha B'Av, I spoke about this on Tisha B'Av. I said, and it's almost scarily, yeah, it was almost like scarily prophetic. I mean, I'm not suggesting I'm a prophet, but what I said was, don't think it can't happen again. Tisha B'Av happened because of Sinat Chinam. Well, that may well be the case. I'll hold my hand up for that. So, Sinat Chinam is what caused the destruction of the Second Temple. Now, what does that mean, Sinat Chinam? When we were kids, babies in kindergarten, we think, we weren't, one person was, baseless hatred. What the hell does that mean? Well, what it meant was that we were not prepared to see another person's point of view. We were not prepared to say, I hear what you've got to say, but I disagree with you because X, Y, Z. But I respect you. I respect I respect your right to have your opinion. I don't agree with it. I don't have to agree with it, and I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. And that is a perfectly mature way of having a discussion. But when you have people who are saying words like hate and kill and destroy, and that's what the language that we were using prior to the
overseas powers to intervene in the process, as people did 2,000 years ago. They went to an outside force.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we've got onto this, but it's I know how we got onto this. The way we were behaving in 2023, prior to October the 7th, was not Or LaGoyim. Nobody will be able to look at the way Israel, the modern state of Israel, was behaving in 2023 and say, that is something that I want to emulate. That is not v'nivrachu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. So anyway, that's how we got onto that. We got onto that because Johnny asked, how can we... You don't agree with me?
And all these protests, I was out there protesting, they're not violent.
Not protest, violent.
Very limited violence.
It's true.
There were huge amounts of protests, huge numbers out there, and very, very limited.
But the language that was being used, the social media posts where people was calling for, for violent action. I grant you, Paul, that it could have been a lot worse, and maybe it would have been a lot worse in other places. I don't disagree with that, but nobody can say that we were behaving in a proper way. We were not behaving in a mature and calm way. Now you asked me a question. How else could we have done it? I don't know. All I know is that there was hatred between people.
There still is.
Well, I think there's less right now because people are too busy.
Hooting more.
Subsided underneath the...
It's papered over the cracks.
Johnny, to put it simply,
let's get back on topic.
Johnny, to put it simply, we were asking for trouble.
Say that again, Johnny.
To put it simply, we were asking for trouble.
Yeah, we were asking for trouble. That's my view. But I think we were asking for trouble. Anyway, let's get back on track.
Sorry about that.
Johnny asked the question, how can we bless Hashem? What we're saying when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, Hashem, we're saying that you are the source of the blessings. That's the that.
Okay.
And oh, I know what I wanted to say about that. So with Abraham, he was told, "You will be the blessing through which the world will come. Through your behavior, people will see your behavior is good and will want to emulate you," like Barbara said. So our whole tachlis, we were talking about this. I can't remember in what context, but we were talking about this fairly recently, and that is, I think it might have been Pirkei Avot Shir. We were talking about it, and that is that we are made b'tselem Elokim,
Yeah.
in the image of God. What does that mean? The image of God. What is the image? The mirror image. That's what it means. It means the mirror image. God is, the Gemara talks about this. God is Rachamim, so we should be Rachamim. We are meant to emulate the midot of Hashem. Hashem is Keil Erech Hapayin. Hashem is the one, a God who is slow to anger. We are meant to be slow to anger. We're not meant to, fly off the handle. So our tachlis, our job in life is to get as close to our pure Tselem Elokim as we possibly can. And that Tselem Elokim is through the way, is again, it's that emulation. That emulation is the blessing. How do you compliment somebody? By copying them. So if we are behaving with the same midot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, then we are, as it were, blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the same way as God blessed Abraham to be the one through which the blessings to the world would come. Okay, so that's the sort of general answer to Johnny's question about Baruch Atah Hashem. But let's get back on track here, and we've got it. We started to talk about this section in the Amidah of 13 brachot where we're asking for things. And I asked you a question, and that was, what is the point of the first three?
Describing who we're talking to.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Just to set us up for the rest of it.
Okay, all right. Hang on a minute. We've got a couple of things here. Charlie says we're buttering up God. Hannah says we are reminding ourselves of who it is that we're speaking to. Johnny, I didn't quite catch what you said.
I said just to set us up for the main part of the Amidah now.
To set us up. Yeah, it is to set us up. But what I'm asking is, how does it set us up? Let's take Charlie's answer first. We are buttering up Hashem. Okay, meaning that we are giving God praise. Does God need our praise? Does he need us to butter him up?
No.
Do we need to butter him up? Yes. So I think that if I understood your meaning correctly, I don't think it really works, because God doesn't need buttering up. That's as if, if I want to ask Philip to lend me a $5, right? But yes. Why does God want us to tell us what we need?
Your ego.
Yes, so that we acknowledge it's all a mirror. Remember, we've said this many, many times. What's the Hebrew word to pray? The hit palel. It's a reflexive thing. God does not need our prayers. We need our prayers. We need to know that we need to pray, right? It's not like I want to borrow a $5 off Philip, so I'll say, Philip, you're the funniest guy I've ever said. Your book is brilliant, and you're the best singer in the shul, and you're the best Baal Tefilah. And by the way, can you lend me a $5?
Not
right? So, I don't think it's that. I don't think it can be that, because that would imply, first of all, it would imply an element of dishonesty on our part, because I'm only buttering him up because
just before you ask for something, you need to present yourself in a certain way. You're not just going to march in and make
right. Okay, so that's a different thing to what I understood you were saying before. If what you're saying is that, which is before you are able to request something, you have to prepare yourself. One sec, Philip. You have to prepare yourself, and you have to prepare the situation, which I think is very similar to what Hannah said, which is that we have to know before whom we are asking the questions and asking asking for whatever it is that we're asking. In other words, we have to remind ourselves that God is the Magen Avraham, that God is the Mechaye Meitim, and that God is the Kel HaKadosh. Now, once I have recognized that the person before whom I am standing is enormous in his greatness, that then allows me, if you like, gives me permission to say my tachanunim, my requests. Okay, because we have acknowledged the greatness of the person, of the being, whatever you want to call it. So it's really, and I think this is what you're saying, Charlie, is to get us in the right frame of mind. You're absolutely right to say you can't just march in and say, "Oi, king, give me this, give me that, give me the other." You've got to know who you're dealing with. Huh?
You can say that to Daddy.
To who?
To Daddy.
Daddy, you can, yeah. Well, I don't know.
Wait a minute, but Johnny, there's something. The biggest. What they say in Yiddish, imploring a chanfanen, you know, is in Avinu Malkeinu. Aseh lemancha im lo lema'anenu. Which for me, that is the biggest, you know, kowtowing to God that there is.
Okay, well, okay. Philip says that Aseh lemancha im lo lema'anenu. Do it for your sake, if not for our sake, is kowtowing to God. What's wrong with kowtowing to God, Philip?
I didn't say there's anything wrong with it, but I'm saying that
you implied, though.
No, I didn't. I said, but this is the strongest example of
praise to God.
Of praise, not praise, not
praise.
Prayers to God. Prayers to God.
Prayers.
Praise
Okay.
to God.
All right. So we are now. We have that first three section as an introduction. If you like, it's the verbal equivalent of what? When we do our Shemonah Esrei, what do? I do our Amida before that. Yeah, it's the verbal equivalent of the 3 steps forward. Remember, the 3 steps back are only so that you can do the 3 steps forward. Okay, so the 3 steps forward are the important thing. And why do we spoke about this? What do we do those 3 steps forward for? Because we are approaching the throne. We're approaching the royal presence. And so, you know, if you're approaching the royal presence, you don't just barge into the room, right? You wait until it's the appropriate time. You go in an appropriate manner, and you go in a measured way. So one sec. So the 3 steps forward are the approach to the royal presence. The 3 first brachot are, if you like, a continuation of those 3 steps forward by a verbal introduction to our request. Remember, the whole point of the Tefilah is for us to have a connection with God and to ask and beseech God for the things that we need. That's the point of this whole exercise. So, as we've all said, you don't just barge in and start your list of wants. So the 3 steps introduces us physically into the presence of God. And then the first 3 brachot introduce us verbally into the greatness of God. We describe the greatness of God, not so that God can say, hey, look at me, everybody thinks I'm a Kel HaKadosh, I'm a holy God. He doesn't need any of that stuff. It's for us to recognize what it is we're trying to do. Because after all, what is God? God is not a man up in the sky with a long white beard. Well, it might be, but God is that godliness in us. We are trying to connect with the spirituality. We're trying to connect with that Tselem Elokim, with that godliness inside us, which makes us into better people. And that is what this connection is about. It's about recognizing that we are not all powerful ourselves. We are not able to do everything ourselves. It's about recognizing that we need to request things from others, at this particular point from God, and perhaps also later on, once we've got that mindset of realizing that we're not the big I am, that we can then have a better relationship here on earth as well. Yes, Philip.
A bit of a spanner in the works here, but coming from the background that I come from, moving forward can also be, I wouldn't say a sign of aggression, but a sign of asserting yourself.
Perhaps that's why we take 3 steps back as well. So we are maybe because I'm saying you're right. I am, because I don't actually think that I don't think that the 3 steps forward is taken in an aggressive way. When you take 3 steps forward, Philip, and you're you're going to do all your business, then I understand that's can be an aggressive stance. Nobody, I don't think, well, they shouldn't anyway. I think it's very unlikely that anybody would take their 3 steps forward for the Shemonah Esrei in an aggressive way and say, right, God,
I want something, mate. I want something from you.
So come on, I'm going to give you all that business. Now, perhaps you're the only one that I can think of that might do that, Philip. I suppose you approaching somebody in an aggressive way is an aggressive act, but this is not an aggressive act. This is an act of, on the contrary, this is an act of humility, of approaching slowly.
You genuflect after 3 steps forward. You do genuflect.
So the first bracha that we're going to talk about in this section of 13 brachot is called what? Yeah, what's the name of the bracha?
Binah. Go to this.
Okay, Johnny says Binah.
Art Scroll says Binah.
Knowledge. Rabbi Sachs says knowledge. I'm not going to argue with him. What does Art Scroll say?
Binah.
Insight. Okay, that's
Binah. Yeah.
All right. Now, the problem we have with this bracha is language. It's a linguistic problem. Let's first of all read the bracha in Hebrew, and let's understand what the words mean. Now, Philip has told us on a number of occasions in the past that there are how many words in Hebrew and how many words in English?
In Hebrew, there's 60,000, and in English there are 600,000 in the lexicon.
Okay, so
a few years ago. Now it might be.
Okay, so whatever the exact figures are, Philip has told us that there are around about 10 times more English words than Hebrew words. So in other words, for every Hebrew word, there's 10 English words.
A lot of idioms in the English language.
So we know that, don't we? It's sometimes difficult to be exact with the translation. The problem we have here is the opposite problem, and that is that in this bracha there are 3 specific words which have similar meanings, but slightly different. And it's sometimes quite difficult to understand the nuances of these words. So let's just have a go and see. And I'm going to come back to the beginning afterwards. Ata chonein. By the way, I'm going to use the Ashkenaz bracha because and then we'll talk about the difference between the Ashkenaz and the Sfard afterwards. So we'll start with the Ashkenaz. Ata chonein la'adam da'at. What does that mean? Ata, you, God. Chonein,
bestow.
Okay, Philip says bestow. Paul says grace. Okay, graces. Okay, any other translations? What's Art Scroll say, Hannah?
Endow.
Endowed. Okay, thank you. Endow. Okay, what have you got there? You've got English. Okay, so the who says grace? Of course, Rabbi Sachs is right, because
That's why.
No, because that is the closest translation. Because the root of the word chonein is chen. Okay, now grace, to grace somebody with.
I found the word lechonen when the president gives pardon somebody. It's also a honey.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll come back to that in a sec. You're right. It's the same word. Okay, and I'll explain to you how it works. It's the same word. So grace, chen, and we've spoken about this before in davening because we've had this word before in this shiur. So what is the essence? What's the essence of the word chen, grace? Let's talk about the English word. What is the essence of grace? Remember, I spoke about a certain thing that the royal family give to people. Do you remember what it was?
Knighthood.
Yeah, you said the grace and favour.
Grace and favour. That's right. The royal family give grace and favour apartments to various people. What does that mean? When you get if you get a grace and it's free. Exactly. When you have chen, when you are given something as a chen, it's for free. So when we say, for example, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. The root of the word v'chuneka is chen. What we're asking for is something for nothing. That is the root of chen. I will grace you with my friendship. Not that you deserve it, right? So that's why I grace you with it, okay? You get a grace and favor flat for nothing, okay? Now, what is, and that's where Hannah has just gone out, but she said that chanina means to pardon somebody. Well, that works, doesn't it? Because when you get pardoned, you get it for nothing. You get let out for nothing. What is the root of that word, of chen? That means nothing in Hebrew.
Chinam. Chinam.
Correct. Chinam. Chinam means free. Same word. Chen. Same root. Okay.
Shomer Chinam. Shomer Chinam.
Shomer Chinam. What's a Shomer Chinam, Johnny? You learned that in
Gemara.
yeah?
Yeah, someone does it for nothing. You do it for nothing.
Shomer Chinam is somebody who
God's
looks after your stuff for free. Okay, a Shomer Chinam. How many Shomrim are there, Johnny?
Shomer Zachar and Shomer Chinam.
Okay, very good. And there's also a Shoel. Okay, yeah, and a Socher, somebody who rents it to you. But a Shomer Chinam is somebody. If I ask you to look after my dog, I asked you to look after I haven't got a dog. But if I had one and I asked you to look after my dog and I didn't pay you for doing it, you would be a Shomer Chinam. If I pay you for looking after my dog, you are a Shomer Sachir. You are a Sachar. You have been paid for doing it. So Shomer Chinam means you do it for nothing. Chinam means nothing. So it's the same root as chen. So when you are asking for something or using the word chonein, we are talking about getting something for nothing. So ata chonein la'adam da'at. Now, you grace Adam, humankind, right? Mankind, humankind, da'at. Now, we said before there are three different expressions here which are very similar. If you add in the fourth one, which is the different one in Sfard, you've got four expressions, all of which mean very similar things. Dea, Binah, Haskell, and the one that in the Nusach Sfard, Chokhmah. Okay? Okay? Who knows what Chabad stands for?
It's
Chokhmah, Binah. Did you know that, Charlie? Chabad stands for Chokhmah, Binah, and Da'at. Now, they're all those words, Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at, Haskell, all mean a different, slightly different nuance of knowledge, wisdom, understanding. See, these are all English words, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. They're all slightly different, aren't they?
Or I understand more a difference between those.
Okay, now that's probably because Dutch is able to translate those into slightly different. Now, I think in English there is a difference. If we just stop for a moment and think about the language, we've got wisdom. Okay, let's ask Rabbi Sachs. Let's ask Rabbi Sachs how he translates Deah, Binah, and Haskell. Okay, knowledge, understanding,
insight,
and discerning. Okay, let's take one at a time. Deah. Rabbi Sachs translates as knowledge. What do you have in your art scroll?
Ladat is knowledge.
Knowledge.
But
Okay.
it also comes from ladat.
Okay, exactly. That's exactly what
wisdom
I was going to say. Say that again, Warren.
Wisdom in the art
wisdom. Okay. Now, I don't think that Deah is. Where are you reading that, Warren? Which translation?
No, it's knowledge. It's knowledge is the last one. Deah. Wisdom is chokhmah.
Wisdom is
Chokhmah.
Chokhmah. Okay. I was going to say, Warren, I don't think that Deah is wisdom. Deah is knowledge.
Knowledge.
Okay?
Tennis is knowledge. Tennis is knowledge. Yeah, it's Flemish. Inzicht. I said
knowledge is something that you have.
Okay, so let me repeat that because that's important. Jeff has pointed out that each of these three terms, Deah, Binah, and Haskell, remember what we're talking about here is we're asking God to give us these things, right? We'll translate the whole bracha in a second. But that's what this bracha is about. It's about God asking us, no, it's about us asking God, to endow us with these gifts. When I say gifts, I use that word advisedly. Why did I use the word gift? Because it says ata chonein. Doesn't say ata notein, ata lomeid. You teach or you give. It's chonein. The implication is there that it's a gift. So Jeff has pointed out that each of these expressions has a different connotation. And we're going to go through them one by one. Deah is knowledge, not wisdom, and not understanding, and not discernment. Deah is the lowest level of what we will call
information.
This concept of information. Okay.
Binah, it then has wisdom. Okay, which is not
that's chokhmah.
The last seems to be that it builds up in the way that it should be, because knowledge you have, knowledge then you understand things, you can understand science, but then you've got to be able to differentiate between aspects of that.
Okay, so I think that the Ashkenaz way, which is Deah, Binah, Haskell, I think that works better than the Sepharad one, which is Chokhmah, Binah, Dat, because I think that's back to front. Yeah, well, okay? So now we have to understand. We have to understand what wisdom is. Okay, what's the Hebrew word for wisdom? Chokhmah. Okay.
That is formal, according to the translation here that I see, the Dutch translation is formal knowledge.
Okay.
Is book
facts.
Yes.
So I think
The Haskell is the word seichel, isn't it?
Yes, it is the word seichel. We're coming to it in a minute, Johnny. Just hang on with that. So let's just look at the Ashkenaz version first. Deah is knowledge. Now, what that means is pure fact. Okay, so you can teach a young child knowledge, right? You could teach a young child if he had enough retentive thing. You could teach him the Einstein's theory of relativity. Don't mean he'd understand it, but you could teach him that knowledge. Okay, that's Deah. Now I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the lowest level of this concept that we're trying to get. Okay. All right. It's the lowest. It's
think what you say, because they are, that's like plain knowledge, and then you come to next, that's insight.
Yes,
You have to
that's
find
right.
the last one, then you can, when you have both, you have the knowledge with theoretical, and you have got into the matter, then that's what is Binah, Pascal, and then you can came to an, how you say it in English, to an oordeel. How do you say it?
Judge.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so that's discernment. That's Haskell. So, okay, so let's take it slowly. Dea is this foundation level of knowledge. Okay, it's the facts. Okay, take my field, right? Medicine. I had to know the knowledge. I had to go and learn the books. Okay, I had to know when the potassium goes up and the sodium goes down, what that means. That is just knowledge. Okay, it's no use, that knowledge, if I can't apply it. Right? If I know that in I don't know, that in measles there's a certain type of rash, okay? But if I can't look at a child with a rash and then say, apply that knowledge that I have to the situation, then it's useless. That knowledge is not of any value. So the foundation level of knowledge needs then to have another level. And the next level is Binah. Binah is to understand. Okay? Understand. Now, where do we have that word? Lahavin, to understand. Ani mevin, we say in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew. Ani mevin, I understand. Okay? So, Binah is understanding. Okay? You get that knowledge, that basic facts. The next level is to understand those basic facts. And then you get the next level, which is Haskell. And as Johnny points out, the root of that word, Sechel. Okay? Or if you're more of a Yiddish pronunciation, Seichel. Seichel. Okay? Yeah, you've got no Seichel. My father always used to say that to me. He says, you might be clever, but you got no bloody Seichel. Right? That's what he used to say to me. So Seichel is what we might call common sense. Common sense. What's common sense? Somebody who, has got some discernment. Use your common sense, right? We've all said that, haven't we? Or had it said to us. Use your common sense, meaning discern what you're meant to do.
Put it together, yeah.
Look carefully at what you're meant to do and make the right decisions. Now, what we don't have in the Ashkenaz version is, in my view, the sum total of all of those things, which is chokhmah, which is wisdom. When you have knowledge and you have understanding and you are discerning and you are able to use your powers of
matter,
or powers of reason and your powers of common sense, you put all of that together, you end up with chokhmah, which is why I don't know why there isn't a chokhmah here, but in the Nusach Sfarad version, it's the other way around. We ask for chokhmah, bina, vadat, chabad. Okay. Now I actually think that that's the wrong way around. I think it should be dea, bina, v'chokhmah, dabach. Okay.
Johnny.
Yeah, a new movement called dabach. Anyway,
Johnny, why does the bracha end up with Konen Hadat then, not Konen Chokmah?
Very good. Okay, I'll tell you why.
If you point out this bracha replicates the whole of it. It starts with the knowledge. It starts with the praise, then the request, then the acknowledgement.
Okay, now that's very interesting. What I was actually going to point that out. This bracha is unique out of all the 19 brachot. The first 3 we've already said are acknowledgement of God's power. When we get to it, you already know that the last 3, beginning with modim, is thank you. Thank you. You're saying thank you, modim. Thank you very much. The 13 in the middle are the requests. This is the only one of the requests that begins with a praise. All the others are just the are just the request. This one begins with a praise and says, Ata chonen la'adam da'at. Okay, so it's almost like it's a bridge from the acknowledgement of the power of God in those first three brachot. This is it's almost like a bridge between this and before you get into the real meat of everything, of asking everything you want. But the first thing that you should be requesting is this concept of knowledge, Binah, understanding, Haskel, discernment, and Chokhmah. Because, one sec, Hannah, why should that be the first thing that we request?
Can I just tell you what Art Scroll says about it, Johnny?
Yeah.
Without that, we can't.
I mean, you could argue that Rafa'enu should be the first one because without your health, you can't do anything either. So you could argue that they all should be the first. But I think you're right. Knowledge, understanding, discernment. If you don't have that, you're not a human being. Because what is it that sets us apart?
That's what it says, Art Scroll, yeah. Art Scroll says sets us apart from the animals.
Yeah. Again, I didn't know that's what Art Scroll said.
Sorry, yeah.
But that's fine. I mean, I don't mind agreeing with Art Scroll now and again.
It said Rabbi Johnny Lieberman said it.
Yeah, did he say? Does it quote me there? Yeah, that's good. So this is what sets us apart from the animal world. The animal world basically works on emotion and reflex. Okay, and a lion will not tear you apart unless he's hungry. Okay, it's a reflex thing. It doesn't have a stop and work out and saying, you know what, I'm not going to be able to eat for the next 3 days because I've got a fast day and then it's Shabbos and I can't cook and so I better eat now. No, when he's hungry, he'll eat. If he's not hungry, he won't eat. What sets us apart from the animal kingdom is our ability to discern, to have understanding, and to use the knowledge that we have to create wisdom. And that is what sets us apart. And so therefore we begin with that bracha first. Yes, Hannah?
I also think it's a bridge because it says, Ata chonen la'adam da'at. And the chonen, you said, is to give a gift. So we're acknowledging after God is everything, that he does give things. Yeah, there's no point asking somebody who's not going to give anything for anything. And here we're acknowledging the fact that God does give things. He gives.
So we're saying more or less the same thing. It's an introduction to the requests, is what you're saying.
It's a statement that we know that you give gifts. You give knowledge.
All right, well, let's have...
You mean, why do you have to ask it afterwards?
No, what I'm saying is it connects between the requests and the first part because we're acknowledging that God gives. He gives knowledge and he teaches.
Okay.
He teaches people to understand.
Let's look at the first sentence in totality. Ata chonen la'adam da'at. You grace humankind with knowledge. In other words, you enable knowledge, people to have knowledge. Umelamed, and you teach le'enosh, humanity, Binah, insight. Okay, so again, dea, da'at, and Binah. You grace man with knowledge, and you teach mankind insight. Now, that's a statement, as Hannah has said. That's not a request, that's a statement. But it's really, well, you could say it's two things, isn't it? First of all, it's a continuation of the first three brachot, which is the praises of God's power, because this is one of God's powers, is that he enables us to have the knowledge. And it's a request. No, not a request. It is an introduction to the request, because as you said, Anna, there's no point asking for something if you're not the kind of being. No point me asking for Philip for a fiver if I know that he's a miser and he's not going to give it me. And no point even asking for it. So we're acknowledging that God gives chonen, graces us. Yeah, well, that's right. We'll butter him up. Yeah. And then we say, this is the next bit, is really very fascinating. Chonenu, root. Okay. So what does the word chonenu mean? Give us for nothing. Give us the grace us with. In other words, give us for nothing. Me itecha. What's that mean?
From you.
Well,
From you.
Who else is going to give it you? If you're asking chonenu, grace us, well, of course it's from you.
No, but it's an acknowledgement that all knowledge is his.
Yes, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's not saying chonenu mi'itcha, give it from you because I can't get it anywhere else. It's not saying give it from you. Don't go to somebody else and give it me from them. Give it me from you. What it means is it's an acknowledgement that this whole concept of knowledge and Binah and understanding and seichel and IQ and all those things is part of godliness. It was written by the Anshe Knesset Agdolah.
Johnny, the Art Scroll says yours, give it from you with a capital Y.
Yes, that's right. From the capital Y, from God. Chonenu mi'itcha. Grace us from yourself.
Yeah.
Which is, if you like, the verbal proof, if you like, the scriptural proof of what I was saying before, that God is in fact us. We are bits of God and God is bits of us. Okay, that's what it's all about. The godliness inside us, that spark inside us that makes us want to do good, that is God. Okay, so my question is, what is God? Okay. Now, when you're a little child, you have this idea that there's a God in heaven, like a big father with, like looks like Santa Claus with a long white beard and all that stuff, or it looks like, Moshe Rabbeinu with Charlton Heston and all that stuff, right? When you're a little boy, when you're more mature, you understand that God is a concept. It's not a human being, and we say it in Yigdal, don't we? Ein lo guf, lo demut guf. God has no body. And he has nothing like a body. The mutaguf, there's nothing. Okay, right? So because he's not bodily. But what is God? God is, and we are made b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God. What it means is that part of us, that intrinsic part of us, which in some people is very deeply buried, but it's there, right? That wants to do good, right? That part of us, that human bit that sees the Nebuch on the street and wants to help that Nebuch and doesn't walk over him and walk away. The part of you that when you see a request for something on the TV for starving children or whatever, that makes you want to do something to help, that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the bit of you that is godly. And that is what we're asking for here. Chonenu me'itcha. Give us for free, grace us with something of you. The more that we have of you, i.e. God, in us, the more godly we are.
But why do we then start with the statement? Like that's what you say. I could imagine that you would say, I don't need the statement before that.
You do need the statement because we have to acknowledge, first of all, that it is a grace from God, this godliness, that this whole godliness is part of the thing. This whole business is a grace from you. Without your grace, without your giving us these things for free, we'd just be animals. We would just be animals. Yeah.
You look me, but the last time. We've just in what said that God's responsible for everything. He maintains everything. He keeps us well. He gives us food. He's basically the whole world. Okay, and here we're acknowledging that all knowledge, understanding, and wisdom is His. And I think that I just thought of it now, but I think that we use the term lechonen because we can't give God anything really. There's nothing, we can't trade for knowledge or wisdom or understanding. There's nothing here. Just please give us, because we haven't got anything to give you. It's maybe a wrong word. I don't know what the right word is. A self-abasement. We don't have anything to give you. Please.
Johnny,
You're the host now, Warren. You're the host, Warren.
Yes.
The ghost of the host. The host with the most.
He's catching himself up, I think.
That's that Hannah.
Don't careful what you say online.
Yeah. No, she was speaking. I don't know what happened. I'll have to ring him up.
We'll be finished by then. The hour's up.
But, okay. Okay, Johnny, thank you. He knew about it, Warren.
All right. Oh, but
Sorry about that, everybody.
Okay.
right.
We've just run out of battery there. Hang on, there we go. Right. So what we have said is that this atachonein, we are getting it for free. We've said, chonenu mi'itecha. Give us the grace from you. And to answer Yochanan's question, Yochanan's question was, what does that mean? It means that that bit, we're asking for something of godliness, because the more of God that we have in us, the greater our tselem Elokim, the greater our image of God is. And what is God? God is the thing inside us that makes us do good things. What is the anti-God? The thing that makes us do bad things. Okay? The Yetzer Hara. Okay? And that's the human bit of us, the animal bit of us, if you like. But we are asking here for the Dea, Binah, and Haskel. What are we asking it for? Because it's Meyitecha. It's not we're asking for Dea, Binah, Haskel. We're not asking for knowledge, understanding, and discernment so that I can get a good job and earn a lot of money, because that's coming in the Mavarech Hashanim. It's coming in a different bracha. This is the key word. The key word in this whole bracha is something that, unless you look carefully for it, it just passes you by, and that is Meyitecha, from you. Chonenu Meyitecha. That is the secret of this bracha, is the word Meyitecha. That we are asking in this bracha for the knowledge, discernment, and wisdom to do good things, to be godly. In a word, to be godly. That is what we're asking for. Meyitecha. That is the key to understanding this bracha, is that word Meyitecha. Because if I was to read you the bracha without Meyitecha, you wouldn't say, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Chonenu Dea Binah Haskel. Grant us, grace us with discernment, knowledge, and understanding. What's Meyitecha? That's what it's telling you. That is the key word, Meyitecha. We're asking for this concept, this midah, this knowledge, this understanding, this chokhmah, this wisdom, in order to do good.
God gives from himself.
That gives from himself. That's right, because we are God. God is us, and we are God. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for godliness. Yeah, godliness is knowledge. Godliness is understanding, and godliness is wisdom, but only when it's used in the correct way. So we are asking for godliness in this bracha. And this is really a massive insight. I mean, until I was preparing this shiur earlier today, I had not understood the concept of this. I thought this was just asking for me to be clever, right? I need to, when I'm going to do my exams, I need to say this bracha with more kavanah so that I'll be able to answer the questions in the exams. No, that's not what it's saying. It's me'itecha. That's the key. Yes, Jeff.
How that works? Because we've got someone that we're asking to give us those.
Yeah, but it's God is an eino guf of eino demuta guf. We have to what's the word? We have to anthropomorphize God, because that's the only way we can understand it. We can only, and that's why as children we totally anthropomorphize God as a sort of an elderly man with a white beard, because that's the only way we can understand it. But actually, there is no guf, there is no demuta guf, there is no God out there, person stood there watching us, right? It's all over. What is God called? Hamakom. Everything is God, right? But the godliness in us, that is our tachlis in life, is to refine the godliness that has been put inside us. Okay, every neshama is that godliness, right? A human being is endowed with a neshama. What is a neshama? It's a soul. That's the same thing. That's the bit of godliness. In the Torah, it talks about God breathing into the nostrils of Adam. What's that mean? He gave him a neshama. What does that mean? Yeah, it means that he gave him those qualities, the ability, and then our tachlis in life is to refine those qualities to the highest possible ability that we can. And when we've achieved that, then that is and we were speaking about this on Shabbat, this Avraham at the Akedah, the Avraham in Shemayim was the same Avraham as on earth. In other words, he'd reached his full potential at that particular point. And that's our tachlis. So the chonenu me'itecha is the key word here, that what we're asking for is, yes, we're asking for knowledge. Yes, we're asking for the ability to understand everything. But there's a tachlis underneath this. The reason we want all these things is so that we can refine our godliness and be a good person, which brings us back to what we started with, or lagoyim. If we are a good persons individually, we then become a good nation nationally. We then fulfill our role as or lagoyim. So as individuals, we have, well, we're not right now, that's true. But that's our tachlis. That's what we're meant to do, Barbara. Okay, as an individuals, we can do it as an individual. The whole is made up of individuals. If everybody in the whole of Am Yisrael chose to really work hard on their godliness, on their ability to do good, and to refine that me'itcha, then as a nation, by definition, we would, because the nation is made up of individuals. So we can't change the nation on our own, but we can change ourselves and we can improve ourselves. And that is what the whole of our life is meant to be, a tikkun olam. We're meant to do the tikkun olam, where we can, with our own olam, with our own world. We've all got that we can improve on, some more than others, but we've all got things that we can improve on. Oh, I'm picking on, I never said a word. I'm even Yovin. Right, okay. Any questions before we go?
Yeah, I want to know why does it select Hadaas as the last bracha instead of Chokmah or Haskel or Binah?
Yeah, you asked me that before. So Johnny says, good question. We said right earlier on, right at the beginning of the Shiurim on the Amida, we said that the bracha, the end of the bracha, is the summary, if you like, the essence of the bracha. Johnny says, why don't we say Baruch Atah Hashem Choneina Chochma or Choneina Haskel? Why if Deah is the lowest level? Because it starts with that. Without that, you can't get to C if you don't go from A to B first. So let's start with the Deah and move on from there. Paul doesn't like it, but it's the best I can do right now.
Well done.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Hopefully, we will move on next week into the next bracha, having understood and got our Deah, Binah, V'Haskel, and our Chochmah. I must tell you, by the way, if I was writing this bracha, if I was part of the Anshe Knesset Agdolah, which I'm not, but if I were, I would combine the two. I would combine the two versions, and I would have Deah, Binah, Haskel, V'Chochmah, because I think Chochmah is the ultimate. I don't understand why in the Chabad and I don't know why it starts. I don't know. There must be a reason. I don't know what it is. To me, it builds up nicely. Deah, Binah, Haskel, and finally Chochmah. What was King Solomon famous for? Not Deah. He wasn't famous for Binah. Chochmah. Chochmah is wisdom. Wisdom is the ultimate, where you take your knowledge and you have used that knowledge and understood that knowledge and discerned that knowledge. That brings you to wisdom. A wise person is a chacham. Chochmah is the ultimate. I see as the ultimate. Why it isn't in the Nusach Ashkenaz at all, I don't know. And why the Nusach Sfard one has it, as it were, back to front, I also don't know. I don't know, but maybe. Okay, that's interesting. Well, which was the right version? The oldest version is the Nusach Ashkenaz. Nusach Ashkenaz is the oldest version that we have available anyway, from the 9th century. The oldest version that we have available to us from the 9th century is Ashkenaz. Of a Siddur I'm talking about. Of course, in the Gemara, we've got bits of prayers in there. But how it changed over the Nusach Sfard came from the Hasidim, the original Hasidim, okay, in the 16th century, 17th century. Okay, that is where the Nusach Sfard came from the Hasidim. So Nusach Ashkenaz is the older version. Why and who changed it? Don't know.
Haskel has become, at least in the Hebrew that I know, identified with secular learning.
Okay, that's an interesting comment. That's an interesting comment. Haskalah, the Haskalah movement was the enlightenment. Okay. Now, if you are enlightened, what does it mean? You understand something. I'm now enlightened about that thing that you taught me. Means I understand it. Means I have discerned it. So it's the correct translation. It's come to mean something else. It's come to mean historically the Enlightenment was basically the educational revolution, wasn't it? We had the scientific revolution, we've had the educational revolution, we've had the industrial revolution, we've had all those things. But the Enlightenment was the educational revolution, where the masses started to become educated or enlightened, which is why it was called Haskalah. So it's the same root.
Originated with Hasidim, then it's quite clear why there's Chochmah in there, because they're very big on Chochmah Chabad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Chabad.
No, they're not. They're not. But it is interesting that Chabad, Chochmah Binah V'Dat, are not Dabach. Okay, we need to go. Laila Tov, everyone.
Laila Tov, Johnny. Thank you.